Hello, this is Skylit Lake reading Super Science by That Chicken Dude. Chapter 39, New Hires. One day, at the new Icon Phoenix research facility, the whole building was flooded with the sound of incoherent screaming. Screaming that lasted from the first thing in the morning till right this moment. Most everyone was able to power through it except for Cho, who looked like she was ready to rip someone's head off. Finally, having enough, she charged out of her division wing and barrels through the hallway, following the yelling until she finds it at the break room, where she bursts through the door and yells louder than whoever was. "What's going on here? What's with all the yelling? Who's yelling? It's only 10 in the morning," she screamed so loud that the shouting stopped all at once upon the sight of the fuming woman. "They are," Hankoyo, who was in the break room, pointed at Izuku and Egon, both of which were silently cowering from the homicidal-looking woman. Calming down from the confusion of seeing the two people in the facility with the strongest bond arguing, she could only babble back, "What the—" Izuku found out that Egon is dating his mum. Honeylemon, who was also in the break room, explained with a giggle. Cho raised her eyebrow and asked, "It took him this long?" Now it was Izuku's turn to be surprised as he yelled in a half shock, "You knew?" "Izuku," Egon tried to grab his attention. Izuku quickly connected the dots and exclaimed, while pointing his finger, "You all knew?" "Izuku," Egon tries more firmly. Izuku whips his head back to the man and proclaims, "Don't you Izuku me, why are you dating my mum?" "'Cause she's hot," Egon argues back. "Egon, she is, she's my mum." "So? You're my employer, it's weird." "It's only weird if you make it." "Egon!" Izuku yells. "Izuku!" Egon yells. While the two of them bicker once more, Honeylemon whispers to Hankayo, "I heard they've already gone out on several dates." "Oh," Hankayo cooed, back in excitement at the gossip. "And get this," she exclaimed in a low tone while waving her hands. "I heard that they've even been holding hands," she squeals. "No way!" Hankayo says in a fake playful surprise. "Fingers laced," she said in a squeaky tone. "Oh, how lewd," Hankayo comments while putting his fingers to his mouth, his head tubes making weird cute sounds. "Doesn't that make babies?" Honeylemon asks with a giggle. At this point, Cho has had enough for the whole day, so she shakes her head, leaves the break room, making a mental note to get headphones. Despite their low whispered tones, Izuku and Egon could hear them the whole time and stop their bickering to stare at them. After they finish and Cho leaves, Egon shouts at them, "Can you two stop being weeaboos? You're scientists, for God's sake. Act like it." "Ahem," calls the loud voice of Morgan. "What?" The two scientists half yell at the woman. "If you two are done with having a family squabble," she began, only to be cut off, "don't you dare marry my mum." Egon looked down at him and proclaimed, "Just for that, I'm going to marry her sooner than planned." This struck a nerve with the boy, and he quickly kicked the man, causing him to grab his leg and yell, "Ow, my shin!" Since they were quietish, Morgan continued and informed them, "As I was saying, you two have several people who want to have an interview for a job." "Are we still hiring?" Izuku asks. "As it turns out, we never took the hiring page down on the website," she explained to him. "Oh, piss. So how many are there?" Egon asks between her painful breaths and hopping on one leg. "About 6 in total, with 2 of them being a pair," she answered. "Let's split them between the 2 of us," Izuku offers, and Egon nods, but not before stamping his shoe on Izuku's toe. A while later, Izuku was sitting in his office with the first interviewee sitting across from him. Unfortunately, he did not expect her to be so big, and ended up using 4 chairs just so she could sit comfortably. The woman in question was a very tall, fox-like woman with a curved figure. She has blonde hair that just reaches her shoulders, a single strand of which goes down the right side of her face. She has large blue eyes and bushy eyelashes and pointed ears, along with a teal-green fur and a white furry underbelly. In terms of attire, she wears an orange button-up shirt with yellow-orange buttons and pockets on both sides of her chest, as well as black pants with a yellow-orange belt. She wears a wristband of the same color on both her arms, along with an orange headband that seems to resemble a pair of earmuffs. She also wears orange and cream-colored slip-on shoes. The two of them sat in silence for a long while after Izuku noticed something strange with her resume and called Egon to come in to help him. But as time went on, it was apparent she was getting very nervous and anxious. So, trying to calm her nerves, Izuku said, "I'm sorry, Miss Futsujoshi," the woman pronounces her name. "Well, I'm sorry for making you wait for so long. The professor should have been here by now to assess your predicament," Izuku assures her as she nods back in affirmation. Suddenly, the automatic door slides open, causing the two to jump at its suddenness, and in walks a very irritated Egon, covered in head to foot in bubbles. After shaking himself off, he stomps inside and announces, "Sorry I'm late. Hatsume tried to weaponize bubbles and turn the entire robotics division into a foam party. Now, what seems to be the holy moly," he exclaims upon seeing the large woman. "Whoa, you, my dear, are a whole lot of woman," Egon comments, craning his head to meet her eyes. "Professor," Egon scolded after seeing the woman uncomfortably blush and fidget. "What? People gawk at statues of naked people and pagan gods. I gawk at large women," Egon argues back. "Professor," Izuku yells at him. Fine, sheesh," Egon finally concedes before taking his more professional mannerisms and saying to her, "Sorry about that. You're just a lot to take in all at once." "I get that a lot," Josie replies, her ears pointed down. Sitting next to Izuku, he says, "Now, what seems to be this very precarious predicament you're telling me about?" Izuku hands him her resume, and reading it over, he understands what he meant and said aloud, "Oh, I see." After reading it over a bit, he puts it down and takes a more proper and professional stance and mannerisms as he tells her flatly, "Well, Miss Josie, according to your resume, you have 0 work experience, 0 previous places of employment, and 0 skills for the job you're trying to get hired for. Can I just ask why?" Suddenly, she begins to tear up, and she explains, "Well, I have no choice in the matter. Due to my size and quirk, I'm not someone who's wanted for the workforce no matter where I go." Josie put her hand to her face and starts to weep bitterly in front of the two men, which causes Izuku to get up flailing and trying to calm her down, telling her, "Oh crap, don't cry, please don't cry." "Yeah, we don't need you to make Izuku cry as well. Then we'll have to brave the high seas," Egon chipped in a snarky tone only Izuku could hear. The teen whipped around and yelled, "Professor!" "Am I wrong?" he asked back with a teasing smile, making the boy blush in anger. Seeing things were starting to unravel, Izuku takes charge and tells her with a firm tone, "Miss Josie, due to your circumstances, we have decided to give you a chance." She stops crying at the news and smiles wide before Izuku tells her, "But don't be fooled by the title of secretary. It's not about sitting at a desk in cute clothes, clacking at a keyboard with finely manicured nails, making copies and coffee for your boss. It has a lot of challenges, and most of all, experience curves. Are you willing to do all you can to achieve the best outcome possible?" Josie sniffles back her tears and holds up her head while saying, "Yes, I am." "Well then, you start tomorrow at 6 a.m. sharp. You'll be shadowing our head secretary, front desk lady and organizer. They'll teach you all you need to take over their jobs when need be," he tells her while holding out his hand. So, elated by this, Josie grabs it and begins shaking it while exclaiming, "I'll do my best." Unfortunately, she was shaking him as well. She stops, letting him go and apologizing. After making the vertigo go away, Izuku shakes his head, fixes his glasses and tells her, "Though, we have to make arrangements for your size differences." "Thank you," she says gratefully. Izuku turns back around to scold Egon, but sees him standing there with a ridiculously open-mouthed smile and holding 2 thumbs open. It then dawns on Izuku that his mentor merely did all of that to test him, and apparently he passed, but not to his pleasure. Sometime later, Izuku's office was once again beset by someone who was looking for a job. Only this time, there were 2 of them, like Morgan told them. A man and a woman, both of which were quite unique in both appearance and personality. The 2 of them appeared very similar to one another in both appearance and age. Maybe they were siblings or something. They both had white hair, red eyes, tall, slim, yet toned physiques. Their clothes could be described as old-fashioned and ancient in terms of style, yet still had the appearance of a scientist. The woman had glasses, and the man had a strange pack on his back that fed into a tube in his strange goggles. "Oh yeah, check it out, age researcher Pura," the woman, Pura, exclaimed while holding a rock on sign by her head and winking. "And ace researcher Robbie," the man Robbie exclaimed as he struck a pose, shooting his hand while pointing his finger into the air. "Reporting for duty." They both stayed in unison. Izuku laughed dryly and said, "You 2 sure are extravagant. So, why exactly do you want to work here, and what do you have to bring to the table?" "I'm glad you asked, Vice President," Pura said as she took out a file from her bag, placing it before him as she offered, "Have a look at this." "It sure is thick," Izuku noted aloud while feeling the folder that looked ready to burst. "It's the Cliff Notes," Robbie told him. Shooting his eyes open in shock, Izuku exclaimed, "These are the Cliff Notes? I'd hate to see the whole thing." "You see, Director, we are researchers in the field of ancient technology." Izuku narrows his eyes, no longer impressed by them, as she cautiously asked, "What, like the pyramids were built by—" But Robbie cut him off as he strode around the room, bobbing as if he were dancing to a song, and told him, Yes, we all know the pyramids were built by Hebrew slaves and not aliens. We're talking about something else." Now curious again, Izuku sat back to take it all in. Seeing this, Pura opened the file and flipped several pages to one part where she pointed out with her fan, "Studies show that the sandstone used in the construction of these monumental tombs of kings were crafted and sent from the southwest part of Africa, and studies showed that they were far faster in their delivery than methods of that age. That remains is how." Before the woman could answer that question, Robbie jumped in and exclaimed while pointing to the air, "I'll tell you how. It's ancient technology, y'all." "Uh-huh," Izuku replies, sitting forward again as his curiosity turned back into caution. "Still not convinced? How about this?" Pura asked while tilting her head, before explaining. "Back when Genghis Khan was expanding his empire of the far west and north, recent studies have shown that he was able to take over towns and villages and cities in time much shorter than travel would be possible in these places. Not only that, reports translated from texts say that Khan army appeared from nowhere and took them by surprise, without any warning from scouts. So how did they cover so much land and take over so many civilizations in such a short time. So, how you may ask? Well, by... Ancient Robbie tried to exclaim once more, only for Izuku to butt in and say, "Ancient technologies, yes, I get it, Robbie." Izuku looks over all the notes for several minutes before taking off his glasses to rub his eyes and tell them, "To be fair, I had never thought of this before. Humans have been extracting resources from the earth for centuries. If at some point they found a vein of, then they would have..." He trailed off deep in thought, muttering to himself before changing the subject and asking them, "So, why choose us of all places? When we saw you pull out that splinter thing, we knew it just had to be connected," Pura answered affirmatively with a smile. "So, we dropped everything and came here to look for a job," Robbie added. Izuku turned around in his chair and thought this over before turning back to them and saying with his hand out, "Well then, I guess you two are hired." Meanwhile, in Egon's office, he too was interviewing one of the groups of two that came in. Sitting across from him were two people so vastly different he didn't know how such a pair could exist. The first was a toddler-sized human reindeer hybrid with the left antler broken but braced on the base by a metal plate. He had a large head and eyes and less defined muscle. He wears a large pale red/pink fuzzy top hat with a sideways medical cross covered with a blue aviator's cap, a blue backpack, and an orange and white striped muscle shirt, and a maroon pair of shorts. The other person was an old woman who surprisingly didn't look a day close to 70. She stands tall and slim with a body that seems to be in her prime despite her wrinkled face. She wears an outfit made for someone much younger, which includes navel ring, a shirt with a bare midriff, a purple blazer, and purple low-riding pants. She has a pair of small sunglasses that were not even covering her eyes. She wears them on her forehead. Alongside that, she wears bracelets and a ring on her left hand with a hardened expression on her face. She looked like a real no-nonsense person. Looking over the papers, Egon asked them, "So, your names are Dr. Kura and Dr. Tony Chopper." "That's right, you can call me Doctrine," Doctrine tells him in a gravely voice. "And everyone calls me Chopper," Chopper added with a happy tone that held a nervous tick. "Well, I certainly like what you two got going for you. This alone would guarantee you both in my facility," he then tells them, making Chopper brighten until he followed up. "Though, I have a question for you, Doctrine." The woman tilts her head as she adjusted the toothpick in her mouth. "It says here that you have unorthodox methods. Can you explain?" he inquires. Suddenly, the woman gets up from her seat, walks up to Izuku and begins to poke and prod at him in all sorts of ways, while saying, "Your temperature is 98.2 degrees, pulse is 46, blood pressure is 125/85, and BMI is 17.5. Shall I continue?" After tasting an old lady out of his mouth when she stuck her fingers in there for a temperature reading, he gets up and replies, "Please wait here." After Egon leaves, Doctrine sits back down with her feet propped on her desk. Chopper comments, "I think you scared him." She then whirls to him and punched him straight in the head while yelling, "Don't be stupid. Of course I didn't." A few minutes later, Egon was in the flabbergasted expression after getting his physical results as he said, "I didn't believe it." "Well, believe it," she said back to him as Egon gingerly put himself back into his chair. After this, he breathes a calming breath and asks, "There's one more thing. It says here you've been practicing medicine for over 80 years. Even if you got into medical school at 16, you'd be well over 120. "I am," she says flatly. "You're what?" he asks her again. 120 years old, she tells him nonchalantly. Trying to freak out over the fact that one of the oldest living people was in his office, he then said while looking over at the small animal person, Changing the subject, Chopper, you're quite young to be a doctor. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The vice president happens to be the same age as you. With this, Chopper beamed so brightly that Egon almost had to look away from him, but put a hand up to shield his eyes, and pushed through as he continues. I just want to know what encouraged you to pursue such a career. I can tell it isn't the woman sitting beside you. With that comment, Egon had to quickly move his head out of the way from a very irritated doctrina's flying toothpick. Chopper stopped beaming, and reserved like he is having a flashback. After his somber tone turns to determination, he proclaims, I want to find a cure to every disease in the world. Egon smiled and says, That's a wonderful dream. I hope that by working here you can achieve it. Chopper nods enthusiastically as Egon imports, Also, I'm quite fascinated by your quirk, a mutation that makes you look like a deer, and a small one at that. That's because he is, Doctor interjects. Is what? Egon asks back. A reindeer, she says nonchalantly. Egon blinks several times, looking between her and Chopper, until he points out and asks, Intelligent animal? You've got cotton shoved in your ears, she replies in an annoyed tone. After taking a moment to digest all of this, he tells the intelligent animal, Well, Chopper, you'll be ecstatic to know that 2 of our other residents are also intelligent animals. Chopper once again beams at this news. But then Egon leans into him and whispered, But my advice, stay away from Dr. Cluck Orbington. She's nuts. I heard that, you hairless monkey, Cluck shouted from behind his office door. Like I said, nuts, Egon egged on. The very last person to be interviewed was by Izuku, who found himself with an old and strange-looking man sitting across from him with the biggest forced smile he'd ever seen. He was a strange, short man who was already dressed like a scientist with a lab coat buttoned up, and a red tie, pants, and black shoes. He was bald, with the only hair left on his head growing from the back and the sides, which gave him 2 twin-tailed bushes of the size, a large nose, and a thick moustache coloured grey framing his face. Feeling suspicious, he asked the man, Dr. Albert W. Willie, am I saying that right? Please, Dr. Willie is fine, he tells him with a small wave, trying too hard to act friendly. I like what I see, but... Izuku began until he was cut off. But? Willie asked too quickly. Looking back down at the papers, he tells him, It says here you've been fired from several different laboratories in your career. I may be young, sir, but I know red flags when I see one, he inquires while leaning. The facade dropped, and Willie loudly proclaims while pointing at him, It's not my fault, I swear. Narrowing his eyes, while raising an eyebrow, he prompted him, Go on. Willie calmed down a bit, and then exclaimed, My old associate, Dr. Light, is to blame. I'll spare you the details. We butted head on a lot of things, and in the end he tried to ruin me multiple times. But I'm far more resourceful than he thinks. After performing this little scene, Willie froze up, knowing he had done himself in. All while Izuku continues to bore holes into him with a suspicious glare. He knew right away this guy was bad news, and he should probably just cut his losses and throw him out. But then he thought it over a little bit and quickly realized that this man could potentially be too dangerous or slippery to handle for anyone in the future if he got in with the wrong crowd. So, the best option going forward was to bring him on so he could watch them closely and have control over everything he did. As the saying goes, sometimes it's better to have the devil as your ally than to have him as your enemy. So, rubbing his temples, he sighs deeply and tells the man, Tell you what, I'll give you a chance, but if I find out that what's been said is true, you can kiss your resourcefulness goodbye, he said in a firm, threatening tone, while glaring daggers at him. Willie adjusts the tie and gulps deeply while sweating and answering, I accept the terms of your agreement. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. We finally got some new hires. I love the new characters, especially Pura and Robbie. They're a pain to act out, but I tried my best with those two. Anyways, yeah, this chapter was quite good. I like the characters. I was wondering, do any of you know where Dr. Willy is from? Because he sounds like an Eggman slash, what's it called? Astro Boy character. I'm not sure if it's one of those two series. If you guys know, please comment down below and tell me, because I'm curious to find out which series he's from. We also got Chopper. I like Chopper. Chopper's cool. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Bye!